Welcome, kindred souls, to the Sacred Clan podcast. This is your space to slow down, breathe deep, and come home to yourself. I'm Sarah. I'm honoured to be part of the Sacred Clan, which is a brand, yes, but as we all know, it's also a living, breathing community rooted in reverence for nature, the divine feminine, and the ancient threads which weave us back to our intuition and our inner magic. With me today is a face you'll definitely recognise. This is Courtney from The Fox and the Ivy, and we're so pleased to have you here and collaborating with us again. We always start by asking our lovely guests for a soulful but simple moment. Where in nature do you feel that you come home to yourself? Where's your special place?
I would say right here.
Oh, good choice.
The sea is definitely that's my special place. Like being on like the sea cliffs near the rock, like a rocky coastline where like the wind is blowing and the gulls and the shells, and like it's just a very peaceful, wild, magical place. So definitely the sea is, especially in Ireland, like the west coast of Ireland, like in Donegal is like chef's
Good
kiss.
choice, good choice. When did you first visit Ireland and discover that space?
My first trip to Ireland was in 2016, I believe. Yes. And during that trip, I actually did not go to Donegal on that visit, but I did go to the west because the Wild Atlantic Way, very similarly, is just that very wild, rugged coastline. So that was my first time discovering kind of the west of Ireland and how much I loved it. And then my first trip to Donegal was actually really recently. It was in May of last year, May of 2024. Wow. So that was the first time I got to visit and explore it. And I need to go back. I would really love to go back to explore more. But it's just feels, especially there, it just feels so ancient and powerful, but absolutely gorgeous. So I would say that there's a soul home for my heart.
Yeah. And what you're describing sounds quite different to where you grew up. Is that right?
Yes, very different. I did not grow up near the ocean at all. I grew up in like a very small, like farming community, rolling hills, and like near the Appalachian Mountains and the Appalachian Trail. And so it was very nature centric, but very differently nature centric. But I feel I've always felt like really drawn to the ocean. My parents would say that when I was a kid, we would go to the beach. We were about 2 hours from the nearest beach, and I would just stay in the water all day long. They had like trouble pulling me out, and when I was a kid, we did swimming lessons, and I just have always been like very much like loved water and loved being near water. It's like falling asleep to like ocean noises and stuff is instantly calming. So absolutely, it's just something, and I feel like something in human nature is just like there's a reason why so many people flock to the ocean side each year to spend time near the ocean. I think there's a special place in human nature to just want to be around the ocean.
Yeah, that primitive connection, that healing quality
absolutely,
of water.
Absolutely.
And your connection to Ireland, it's so lovely that your special place, your sort of soulful space is Ireland itself. So much of your work is tied to and inspired by the stories, the land, the heritage. What took you there?
I think so a bit of two reasons. One is I just think the landscape itself, I've seen like, photos online and pictures and books and stuff, and have just been really drawn to like Celtic folklore and that type of thing. And seeing these landscapes in like travel books and stuff, for some reason, just the green and the hills and the cliffs and all of those stuff just visually very appealing to my personal preference. The land seems to have like this story, this ancient story that it holds on to, but also the culture has this, ancientness to it, and all of the folklore surrounding the land and the different places. And there's this one place in Ireland, it's called the Haliach's chair, the hag's throne, and like the story goes that she was creating Ireland and she tripped and fell, and she when she fell, all of these rocks flew out of her hand, and that's what created like these different like mounds of, so just like stories like that are just so, it's just so magical. So like there's kind of the folklore surrounding the land, and then also on my dad's side, I have some Irish ancestry, and hearing stories and learning about, just the people and their, like, obviously I'm from a family of immigrants because I'm from the U.S. So just hearing about the stories of leaving home and
Hmm.
finding home somewhere else, and just getting to go back to where like part of my family was from and getting to see things from a new perspective, I think was really cool. Like wondering like, oh, if they did they stand in this spot that I'm standing right now, or something like that, and did they ever think that anybody would ever go back, or so
Yeah.
that kind of thing, just like kind of reconnecting where your people came from, I guess, is
Hmm.
I think another thing that drew me there.
And is that storytelling part of your artistry when you're doing your
Yeah.
photography? Is there a tale you're trying to
Yeah,
tell?
I think that the storytelling part of it is like essential. I think um, using all of these different elements to create a mood and create a story, and are so important. Like the colors you wear, where you take the photos, the type of thing that you're wearing, the posing. Like even if it's a simple like shot where your back is to the camera, I feel like people can put themselves in your shoes and
Hmm.
kind of feel like they're part of that
Yeah.
story when they look at an image like that, especially with like a faceless image. They can kind of put themselves in your shoes and imagine themselves in that landscape, and you can kind of create these like magical stories from something as simple as like a hand movement or a prop or something. So yeah, I definitely think that the storytelling part is why I do photography. Definitely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's beautiful. And when you're doing that photography, who do you feel you're talking to? Who's that message
That's
for?
such a great question. I think I think it's really for like the dreamers out there, the
Yeah.
romantics
Yeah.
who like they may realistically be in an office cubicle, but for a moment when they're looking at that image,
Yeah.
they're somewhere far away in some like ancient magic land, standing on the cliffside, or standing in the ruins of a castle, or and for just a moment they can escape and imagine themselves there, and can escape the mundane
Yeah.
into something more magical. I think we could all use that sometimes,
Yeah.
because sometimes like life can get a
Oh,
little dreary, and having that magic to escape to, I think, is really essential to
yeah.
to humans. Like humans are storytellers, and being able to look at an image and creating a story in your head of how you'd like to imagine yourself, I think, is magical.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we, as admirers of your work, are so grateful for the window you give us that escapism because, yeah, we're in a privileged position right here where we can enjoy
Right.
nature, the coast, all of
Yeah.
that. But yeah, when we can't, you create those windows for us. What was your journey to that art form of self portraiture, putting yourself into that position where it's quite a vulnerable one,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
So many of us might have aspirations to do
Yeah,
that but
absolutely.
feel a bit shy about it.
Yeah.
How did you get yourself to that
Yeah,
position? How did it
that's
start for
such a
you?
good question. So I think when I first started out doing photography, it was actually more lifestyle. So I would
Yeah.
like, again, kind of going back to the storytelling, I would like to create little scenes of, it could be something as simple as like setting up a few candles, a few open books, a piece of jewelry. And I just wanted it to look like somebody stepped out of the scene for just a second to go grab something and
Yeah.
just left it how it was. And so as I got more comfortable with doing that, I was like, well, why don't I try to be in the photos and see how that goes. So initially, it started where I would kind of like do the more faceless images, because again, like you said, it is kind of vulnerable seeing yourself in that light. But then, in conversely, it's also quite empowering because you get to be in control of the setting, you get to be in control of the camera settings, you get to be in control of kind of all of those elements, and it really gets you in tune with yourself and like your body and your best angles and your best positioning, and getting you to like experiment with new things, because it's just you and the camera. There's nobody to perform for. It's
Mm-hmm.
just you and the camera, and if something looks bad or you don't like something, you can always take another one. There's
Mm-hmm.
no
Yeah.
pressure. So I think initially it's kind of that vulnerable space of, oh, I'm taking photos of myself. This can be scary sometimes, but then it's also kind of beautiful that you have complete control over whether something goes out to the world or whether it's just you just keep it to yourself and that's just for
Yeah.
you. Um, so yeah, I think it's scary, but the more you do and the more you get out and be vulnerable, it gets easier and easier each time, I think.
Yeah, that's lovely to hear. And in our last episode, Fairy Fern shared with us that she wasn't so intimidated by the process of self portraiture
Yeah.
necessarily. It was the sharing of it on social media.
Mm.
That was the big hurdle for her. Is that something you can relate to?
Absolutely, 100%. Because once it's out into the world, like that's when you, because I was talking about, control, that's when you
Yeah.
kind of like lose control of
Mm-hmm.
the image. And not necessarily saying that anybody would be, but it's something very personal. It's something very like, I feel like a lot of us do self portrait, a lot of the people who I've encountered who do self portraiture, including myself, do it as sort of like this healing, like you mentioned,
Mm.
kind of thing where it's reconnecting with yourself and giving yourself permission to, be self confident and be, just express yourself fully as who you are.
Mm.
And that can feel really scary when you're putting
Yeah.
that out into the world. Like, this is my whole heart. Here you
Yeah.
go. And when you're not sure how it's going to be received, it can be
Mm.
very, very vulnerable, like you
Mm-hmm.
said. But I think the kind of community that is drawn to these images is also a very gentle
Yeah.
community, a very gentle, kind, like uplifting community who is very supportive of this type of thing. And that's been most of my encounters is just unadulterated support of every
Beautiful.
image, whether
Yeah.
it's good or bad, or
Oh.
it's all just like, because at the end of the day, these portraits are for you and what you love to do, and this
Mm-hmm.
is like a little piece of your heart. um, and I think the more that you're vulnerable, the more you also can like accept like love
Yeah.
and accept that, like new relationships. And because if you're kind of guarded and shielded off, there's no room for anything. But once you kind of let go of that control, beautiful things happen.
That's a really powerful message. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Are there any particular connections you've made through your work that stand out to you? Are there any people you've encountered, any moments you've had that stick in your mind as like, wow, this is a real moment that I'll remember and treasure?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like this one right now, first of all.
Oh, well, thank you. We're delighted you're here.
But also, like, most of my friendships
Yeah.
are from social media. Like, they, I've found a group of people who think the way that I do and who see the world the way that I do, that there's just so much beauty in this,
Mm.
like the simple, there's so much
Yeah.
beauty in like just the way that the sun's rays come through the trees in the forest in the morning, when there's like a little bit of mist hanging in the air. And like some people, you know, don't really notice it, but the kind of community that this is like people who appreciate that thing, that sort of thing. So just, I think of Vanessa, the Song of the
Oh,
Swan,
lovely, Vanessa.
one of my best friends. She is another person who I met from the social media, like, Instagram community. And my friend Fox in the Fells, who lives not far from me, actually,
Mm-hmm.
I discovered that she lived not far from me from Instagram.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, just those sort of kind of connections that you find your people, I think, in
Mm-hmm.
within this space. And that's another thing, is like, again, being kind of more vulnerable, you find the people who, share the same kind of dreams and aspirations and, those type of things
Yeah,
in that arena. So
that's
yeah,
gorgeous.
definitely, like, and like I said, this moment right here, right now.
Aww. Well, I think I read somewhere, someone said that while you're going around pretending to be someone you think you ought to be, there are so many people looking for who you really are and
Yeah,
wanting to connect with that. So
yeah,
that what you said really sort of rings true
yeah,
in that sense,
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
And that healing journey, what changes have you noticed in yourself since you started this form of art?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, making yourself vulnerable, putting
Right.
yourself out there. What have you noticed that's different in yourself now?
Yeah, I think I'm still not 100% there yet, but I do feel as though I've gotten a little bit more confident and sure of myself, like sure of my decisions. And before Instagram, I wouldn't travel very much. And now with Instagram, I'm traveling much more, thankfully, because I now have a community of people who I love to go visit in different
Mm-hmm.
countries and different places. And I was like deathly afraid of flying. And like I've been doing flying much more often. And I think I've been getting much better at this. So kind of like personal changes in that regard of like dealing with anxieties, dealing with issues with self confidence and putting yourself out there. And then also I think I've just grown as an artist in the sense that I think I've given myself permission to fail and permission to make mistakes and permission to, even if I have a concept in mind, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't go the way that because just actually the other last week I live in a farming community and they were harvesting hay bales, and I was going to this one field. I had this concept in mind. I wanted to do this concept. I went to this field very excited to be able to shoot with these hay bales, and the day that I went, they were harvesting all the hay bales as I was trying to get portraits. And at first, I noticed myself getting very frustrated. And I'm like, you know what? It just wasn't meant to be. I got two images, and, I was happy with that. But those things happen. And I think you just have to go with the flow. So I've learned to go with the flow and, know that this is not the right time. What will be, will be. And you can't control everything in the universe.
Wise words indeed, and yeah, inspiring words for anyone who might be thinking of trying self-portraiture
Yes.
for the first time. Are there any other insights or words of wisdom you might have for somebody who's just on the cusp, thinking, "I'd really like to try this.
Yeah.
Where do I begin?"
Yeah, I think firstly is if you just have to go out and do it. Pick a place, pick your favorite dress, pick your favorite outfit, and just go out and have. I think the best thing is to have no expectations, because if you don't have any expectations, then you're not disappointed.
Yeah.
So having no expectations, just you and your camera, just going out and seeing what you can create. And I think, again, kind of giving yourself permission to make mistakes and know that it's not going to be perfect. It's not, you're going to have this idea of a concept that you want to create in your head, but 9 times out of 10, it's not going to come out exactly as you hope for your first go around. But that doesn't mean you can't revisit it. It doesn't mean you can't try again. Because again, it's just you and your camera. There's nobody else to perform for. It's what, if it's what you love to do, there's no audience to perform for. It's just you and your camera and your passion and your idea that you have in your head. And I think just lowering the stakes a little bit is I think what helps creativity bloom. It gives it room, I think, to grow. So,
Lovely.
yeah.
Thank you. And we all know in the media society, our aunties, meaning very well, often have things to say about, I don't know, if we've not tied our hair in a particular way, or we're wearing certain clothes, or my favourite one is, "Oh, you're looking so well," which means you've been at the cake. Right. How do you advise us? How do you counter those messages, that criticism, those watchful eyes? How do you steady yourself against that? And what would you say to others?
I think at first it probably was something that really got to me and really did kind of bother me. But I think as I've done this, after I've been in this kind of like genre for a while, it kind of goes back to, there's nobody to perform for. There's nobody. This is what I love to do, and how my appearance and my looks are only a very small part of me as a person. Like, I think of everybody so much more than, what they are on the outside. And I think sharing more of that too, like being, again, more vulnerable and sharing, your hopes, dreams, your fears, your wants, your aspirations, is something that I think really, brings you have this very magical part of the genre, but then there's still this very human part too. And I think finding a way to marry the two is the most beautiful thing. And I think, again, like, if it's something that you love doing, like, go for it. Like, and I would say I've found that with those type of kind of offhand comments and that type of thing, I kind of just let them float away like they're little pesky fairies talking in my ear, and shoo them away. But I found that there have been so many more positive comments and positive than the rare odd kind of off color comment. So I hope that wouldn't discourage anybody from, trying, in the fear of like that one offhand comment, because again, the community that I feel like gravitates towards this type of imagery is such a very like kind, gentle, supportive, loving community that I really don't get much of those, to be quite
Yeah.
honest.
And I imagine that community and that positivity must feel a bit like armor when you're facing the rest
Yeah,
of the world.
yeah,
That, you know,
it really it
from what
does.
you're saying,
Yeah,
it sounds
like just
grateful.
the amount of like I never kind of think twice about posting anymore because I just know that the type of community that it is, like, will always, whether it be even just something as simple as like commenting about the caption, because of course, like, you have the imagery, but then you also have like, I feel like I would like to treat Instagram as sort of like a visual little diary. And so people reading the captions that you put together and it is also something that, that makes you think about different things. It teaches you something. Like I love when I see images, like magical images paired with like a really like lovely caption. So even if it's something as simple as somebody saying like, "Oh, I loved the words that you wrote," or something, is also just a really lovely thing to hear. And when it comes from a community who values those type of things, it does very much feel like armor. It feels very like you're not scared anymore to, post or be vulnerable.
That's just wonderful. Thank you. There are so many inspiring takeaways that, I'll be keeping from this conversation. Thank you for being vulnerable with us, and thank you for sharing
Of
everything with us.
course.
One final thing, I just wanted to ask what your wish for the year ahead might be. Is there anything that you're hoping you might have achieved or might have come to you by this time next year?
Yeah. So I think I'm hoping, even if it doesn't fully happen by this time next year, I hope that the wheels are in motion. I would love to be able to live somewhere like
Oh,
here, whether it be Isle of Man or Ireland or Scotland or England, somewhere in this part of the world. I think that would be the ultimate goal that I hope might happen within the next year. So even if I'm not physically living somewhere like that by next year, I hope that the paperwork or something is set in
yeah.
motion, that things are in the works for me to be able to do that. So that's my hope for the next year.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Well, we share in your wish. We'd love to welcome you to British
Thank you.
shores,
Yes.
so that we can spend time with you more
Yes.
often. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. And yeah, thank you for joining us too. We'll see you
Yeah.
next time.
Thank you for having me.